So I think the idea of a human economy, I'll reduce what I was planning to say, because I've said more about that than I was planning to. I take very seriously the notion that this is an economy we're talking about, which means you have to ask, well, what do you do with an economy? And here the French economy is particularly interesting because it means both economy and economics. The term economy is the same for both, so you don't know quite which is which. And of course our term economy is quite, the English term economy is rather uncertain, you know, because is it a thing like the British economy, something out there, an object? Or is it a form of subjectivity, an attitude, a way of making resources distributed effectively or whatever? If you look at the English dictionaries, I mean, I've looked at a lot of them and I've come up with 5 clusters of meaning to the term economy. The first of these is order and or management. The second is efficient conservation of resources, as in budgeting or thrift. The third is practical affairs, an economy of anything. It means getting things done. The fourth is that it's identified very strongly with money and wealth. And finally, and the dominant identity in our time, the market. Now, I mean, historically, the idea of economy started out as household management in ancient Greece, and is now more or less identified in mainstream economics with the free market. And one of the challenges is really how to combine some of the notions associated with household management and some of those associated with how markets function. And indeed, historically, economy has tended to be either domestic or political, public that is. And in a recent book that, not recent, is coming out next month, that Chris Hahn and I have written, which is, you would have been getting this in glorious PowerPoint, but it's called Economic Anthropology, History, Ethnography, Critique. Polity bringing it out next month. In that we kind of develop these notions of economy. But I think it's quite interesting that, I mean, I see economy as being pulled in 2 directions at once. That is, inwards to secure local guarantees of a community's rights and interests, and outwards to make good deficiencies of local supply by engaging more inclusively with others through money and markets. Now this is pretty close to Polanyi's notion of economy, that there is an external and an internal. It's something certainly that Marcel Mauss writes about quite a lot in The Gift and elsewhere, which is that you have local communities in which rights and interests are secured in certain ways which are often quite coercive, but these communities can't be self-sufficient and they have to engage with foreigners somehow. And Mauss argues that although you need to extend and broaden the term, money and markets are intrinsic to this process of extension. So the issue is, how can you extend your reach in economy while at the same time conserving local control? And so I believe that the idea of house, putting one's house in order, conceiving of that house as perhaps at one stage palaces, monasteries, temples, whatever, but or even nations, that somehow we have to conceive of how to put our house in order while extending ourselves through mediums such as money and markets to take part in what is actually going on now, which is the formation of a world society in which everyone plays a part, but of course not very many people play an effective influence in any way. This thinking lies behind the decision to shift from the other economy to the human economy. And it really is, I think that something that David and Catherine and Jean-Louis and myself and many others would share is a notion that economies are much more like each other than the descriptions that we make of them suggest. In other words, we rely on contrastive stereotypes like capitalism and socialism or state and market or whatever, but actually to the extent that they are conceived of as being built on what people really do, the economies are much more like each other than you imagine. So that, one of the great historical questions of our time is how did the greatest and most coercive bureaucracy in the history of the planet, the Soviet Union, collapse with almost no loss of life, in such a short time? And the answer is because invisibly there was all this other stuff going on, not just corrupt trade involving the collectives, but informal economies and religion and kinship and blah 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 blah, and all of this stuff is eroding in often invisible ways the power of this coercive hierarchy to organize life, which it does incredibly ineffectively, as David said. So everywhere people combine reliance on the state, on markets, on associations, on family, on mutuality, self-help, crime, you name it. There's a wide range of elements. And just to give you some idea of what I'm talking about, I'll just tell you about someone I know called Indiwe, who's a Zulu woman, lives in Umlazi near Durban. She's a domestic servant, works for white people. She lives in a township which has been for a long time, before apartheid. She travels to work in informal minibuses. She rents from the local council. She has 2 sons, adolescents, who are unemployed and are drifting into crime, drugs and stuff like that in the township. She used to have a job in a factory, which she much preferred, but all the factories have closed down in the last 20 years. She sells beauty products door to door in the evening. She belongs to the United Church of the Kingdom of God and has various associations and economic related activities connected to that. She belongs to a Stokvel, a savings association. She owes money to local loan sharks in the township who scare the life out of her. Her brother has AIDS. She puts his kids through school. It's a big problem, feeding them and paying for the uniforms, but she has to do it somehow. She has a crippled mother who gets a state pension, which is the one thing that, it's the single largest form of secure income in South Africa to the poor black majority is state transfers for disability and old age. And in fact, it's the old people who have the money in the villages because of this and so on. So I want to just describing this person. And the thing is that she knows this life better than anyone. Nobody can tell her, about this life. But there are parts of this life. This is her everyday life. She knows it better than anybody else. But there are things that she doesn't know, like, she also has a husband who was last seen in Alexandria near Johannesburg having been thrown out of work on the mines. I mean, she has questions, you know, why is it that we're not doing as well with a black government, you know, that we thought? Why has mines employment disappeared for the young men? Why do my boys have to turn to crime if they want to make a living? All kinds of basic questions about the society, the economy that she doesn't know, as well as this incredible range of activities that she juggles in order to keep this really quite remarkable enterprise going.